Welcome everybody to Intro to QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Online Accountants. My name is Michelle Long and I'm glad to have you all joining me here today. For those of you that weren't able to get in on the earlier webinar because it was too full, I apologize. Hopefully you're able to join us for this one, but it will be recorded and I will post that and make that available later. Unfortunately, just like the airlines sometimes overbook, I had that problem. Usually we only have about 50% attend, but for the earlier session and this one as well, both of them are overbooked, and there were a lot of people who didn't make it in earlier today. So I'm glad you're joining us for this one, and again, I will be recording this and posting it so you can listen later. I know some people have said they had to leave early. But thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Michelle Long. I'm the owner of Long for Success, and I'm really excited about something new. You'll see I've got a QuickBooks practice set there. My son and I collaborated on this, and we've created a practice set for QuickBooks. Now that is for the desktop, like QuickBooks Pro or Premier, but it gives you practice transactions to go through, and we've just finished that, and it should be available around the first part of June if people want to order that. We also have plans to do one for QuickBooks Online, so watch for that later this summer. If you subscribe to my blog, you'll be sure to get that information when it becomes available. But I'm glad to have you all joining us today. I see some familiar names from the AIPV group, from my LinkedIn group, or various places online. So I'm really glad you're joining us today. And what we're covering today is we're going to go over several different things. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about what to recommend. You know, should we recommend QuickBooks Pro, Premier, or Desktop products? Should we recommend QuickBooks Online? And what are a few key differences between? And when I talk about QuickBooks Desktop, I'm talking primarily about Pro or Premier, whether it's Premier Contractor, Premier Manufacturing. QuickBooks Enterprise does have more features and functionality, and that is a desktop product as well. And then we're talking about QuickBooks QBO, QuickBooks Online. So if you hear me say QBO, I'm talking about QuickBooks Online. And then there's QuickBooks Online for accountants. And I'm going to get in and show you both of those today pretty much in depth. We're going to go through QBO and QBOA. We're going to be in there looking at that just a few slides here at the very beginning. There is no CPE for this webinar, so I do have a couple polling questions though, but there's no CPE credit for this free webinar today. The Q&A box, you should be able to type in your questions into that chat box. I will be able to see them, but you can't see each other's. I'm going to be reading some of them out loud and answering them verbally. I'm not going to be typing those answers in because I don't have time to type them in and talk at the same time. So I encourage you, please, please, please type your questions in there. I will pause periodically to answer your questions, and I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. But there's a lot of people on this webinar today, so I don't guarantee that I'll get to all of them. But please type them in there. Somebody wants to know if it's recorded. Yes, it will be recorded, and I will post that link out there. I'll do a blog post with the link to the recording. I plan on uploading it to YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, go look for me out there. It's Michelle Long CPA, or put in Michelle L. Long, or go to my website, and there's a link to the YouTube there as well. And again, subscribe for future webinars. And join my LinkedIn group. If you have questions, there's almost 30,000 members now. It's just growing rapidly, and it's a great resource when you have questions to ask one another. I'm going to go ahead, first of all, and launch this quick poll so it kind of lets me know where you're at with QuickBooks Online. Now, if you're using a tablet or an iPad to join us for this webinar, you're not going to be able to answer the polling questions, and there's no CPE credit anyway, but this just kind of gives me a feel for where you're at with QBO or QBOA. And this webinar is primarily for accounting professionals as opposed to end users, although we may get a few end users listening to it. But it's not intended to teach you all the details about using QuickBooks Online. It's meant more of an introduction, seeing how it's different to the desktop version, and then some tools and features that are available for accounting professionals as well. So we've got several people who are typing in some questions. This is great. Somebody said, actually, I use it quite a bit, but I still don't like it. Uh-oh. I hope I can kind of change your mind on some of that. I'm going to share some things in here with you today that maybe you weren't aware of or you just didn't know that you could do, and I hope that will help some. But if you could go ahead and take a second to answer that poll, I appreciate it, and I'll share those results with you here in just a minute. Just let me know where you're at with QBO right now, QuickBooks Online. Okay, we've got close to 90% voting, so I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. And let's share those results so you can see we've got a pretty good split here. We've got 28% of you that have heard of it, you haven't used it before. We've got a third that have used it some, but they don't like it. And those are the ones I hope I can show you some new things today that you'll like it better when we get done. And then 30% that like it, very good, or have used it quite a bit. And then 7%, oh my God, I love it. Very good. How cool. All right, so that's great. Thank you. Let me go ahead and hide those poll results so we can get back to our slides now. Somebody said good luck. Good luck confer to you. Okay, Bruce, I want to know what you think at the end of this today. I have my skeptics out there, so I got my work cut out for me. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some resources for you, and I put these in the chat room for you. But the sample company file, you can go into that QBO.intuit.com/REDIR/test drive. And you put in your little CAPTCHA there, and you could go into a sample company file and play with it and explore it and use it and things like that. Then when you're ready to sign up for QuickBooks Online Accountants Edition, you go into QBOA.intuit.com, and you can sign up for that as well. So those are a couple of resources that you can get into today. I am going to show you a lot with that sample company file, and then I also have some stuff set up in QBOA for you as well. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about, which one? Should we use QuickBooks Desktop or should we use QuickBooks Online? And it depends. It depends on the needs of the business. And one of the things that Intuit has said is that for people who have not been using either one, they're not using any kind of QuickBooks at all, they're new to the Intuit or the QuickBooks family, 40% of the new users are choosing QuickBooks Online. So if you're not supporting that for your clients, you're going to be missing out on a lot of new business and a lot of new clients. So a lot of these new businesses or startup companies or small businesses are choosing QuickBooks Online. So really, when you're looking at the needs of the business, consider the features and the functionality. What's available in QuickBooks Pro or Premier versus QuickBooks Online. But if you're looking at that, you also need to consider which add-ons are available, because maybe it's not in the product itself, but there's an add-on that will support that. So you need to, first of all, consider the needs of the business, the features and functionality, and what's going to meet their needs. Also, then you need to consider access to the data and the number of users. Do they need remote access? Do they need to be able to enter things remotely from a mobile device or from an iPad or a tablet? How many users are they? Where are they located? What do they need to access from a mobile device? Do they just need to enter invoices and estimates, or do they want full access? If they want full access, then they might want to consider having QuickBooks Desktop hosted. A hosting company will take the desktop version of QuickBooks, as in QuickBooks Pro and Premier, and host it for you so you can access it from everywhere. Whereas with QuickBooks Online, the mobile access right now, and I know they're working on the iPad app and they're adding new things to it, but right now it's limited. You can't fully access QuickBooks Online from a tablet or a mobile device. You can do a few things like entering estimates, entering invoices. You can enter expenses now, but you can't see all your reports. You couldn't do a bank rec. You can't see all the details on a tablet or a mobile device. So that's a consideration. You also need to consider the cost. QuickBooks Online is a monthly subscription fee, whereas the desktop version, you buy the license and you use it over 3 years. But if you have multiple users, you got to buy a license for each user. With QuickBooks Online, the subscription might include multiple users, like 3 or 5 users. Then there's also some intangible benefits as well, things that you can't really quantify as easily, but that shared access and collaboration. When you're accessing that and collaborating with your client, you're using the same data in the cloud, so you don't have those compatibility issues. You're not sending backup files back and forth, and you don't worry about the client getting this file and restoring it, things like that. When you're sharing that data in the cloud, it just makes it a lot easier. You avoid the compatibility issues. You're able to keep up with the client and in contact with them on a regular basis, as opposed to just periodically. So some of those things you really can't quantify as easily. So let's talk a little bit about some key differences, okay? And one of the questions I always get is, which is better? Which do you recommend? You can't just say QuickBooks Online is better than QuickBooks Desktop or vice versa. They're apples and oranges. They might both be a fruit, but they're totally different. They're both from Intuit. They both have the name QuickBooks in there, but they're both totally different. So let's talk a little bit about what's in the desktop version that's not in QuickBooks Online, because this is the thing I hear the most from accountants. Well, QBO isn't as robust, and it doesn't have all the features of the desktop version. You're right. It's not the same as the desktop version. It's never going to be exactly like the desktop version. It doesn't have batch invoicing, no billing rates, no price levels, no progress invoicing, and the job costing isn't as robust as it is in the online version as the desktop. Desktop has more robust job costing and reports. So those are some things. If your client really needs to use billing rates or price levels, then you probably want to recommend the desktop version of QuickBooks. And by desktop, I mean Pro or Premier, maybe Enterprise, but things that are on a Windows-based computer versus the online version. So that's one thing to take in consideration. But then QuickBooks Online has some things that are better than the desktop or that are not in the desktop. For example, QBO is cloud-based. If you want the desktop to be cloud-based, you have to have it hosted. There's hosting companies out there. Intuit has about 16 authorized hosting providers like Right Networks and some other ones, and they can take your QuickBooks Pro or Premier or Accountant or Enterprise and host it in the cloud so that you can log in remotely, but there's a monthly fee for that as well, so you need to take that into consideration. You can auto-send reports in QBO. I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. That's kind of cool. You can do delayed charges. Let's say you have a client who's an attorney or they're billing for their services, or maybe it's a lawn and landscape company and they want to enter their charges throughout the month and then invoice at the end of the month. So you can enter delayed charges. You then can also invoice from those unbilled charges or unbilled expenses. So you can do that in batch and automatically bill all your unbilled expenses and charges and stuff all at once. So that's kind of cool. You can enter a service date. So on your invoice, you can have the date of the service, not just the date of the invoice or the due date. So that's really cool, is being able to see that service date. So let's say it is that lawn and landscape company and they do the invoice at the end of the month. They can show the date of the service for the 3 different weeks or 4 weeks that they did during the month on that invoice. The income list and money bar is a nice little dashboard for your clients, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. You can have more than one AR or AP in a journal entry with QuickBooks Online. You know, in the desktop, you can only have one. That's not a limitation with the QuickBooks Online. You also can have location and class tracking. You know, you can have class tracking for QBO or QuickBooks on the desktop, but you can also have class and location in the QBO. Some other cool things I'm going to share with you. I've heard a lot of people say, well, I don't like QBO because you can't have multiple windows open at the same time. Yes, you can. You can have more than one window open, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. And you can have those multiple windows on different monitors, so you can see things a lot better and easier. You can see the activity log. It gives you better information as opposed to the audit trail. I'll show you that. I'm also going to show you how you can rearrange your menus in QBO. So there's quite a few different things, and QBO actually has some stuff that's pretty cool that's not in the desktop version. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and get into QBO. One of the first things that I want to point out to you, though, is if you go to QuickBooks.intuit.com, so you go to QuickBooks.com basically, under Accounting, if I click on accounting software, click on QuickBooks, Intuit is showing people the QuickBooks Online products. This is QuickBooks Simple Start, Essentials, and Plus. If you wanted to find the desktop versions, you got to come down here and look for those. Intuit is emphasizing QuickBooks Online. It's emphasizing the cloud products because that's where people are starting to go now. If you watch any commercials on TV, you're going to see the QBO products. You're not seeing the QuickBooks Pro anymore. So if you go in here and compare Simple Start versus Essentials versus Plus, let me get rid of this little chat window. Sorry about that. You've got these different versions of QBO. So there's different ones depending on which level they need. I'm not covering payroll today, but payroll is an add-on. You can have QuickBooks Online Payroll that integrates with it. We're not covering that today. That's kind of beyond the scope of this. But come out here and look. So you may have clients that are using different versions or different editions depending on what their needs are. With the Simple Start edition, they don't get manage and pay bills. In other words, there's no accounts payable. If you want that, you need to start at the Essentials version. You can import from the desktop version of QuickBooks. So if you've got a client that's been using QuickBooks Pro or Simple Start or Enterprise or any of the desktop versions, you can then import that file into QBO and have all that history in QuickBooks Online. So you can import that into QuickBooks Online. Multiple users you can have with Essentials. Simple Start is for one user only. You can have multiple users. You can do purchase orders. You can track inventory in QBO. It is a FIFO-based inventory. If you need more robust inventory, there's add-ons that help with that. You can do 1099s now. They have sales taxes in QBO now. Intuit has been adding a lot of new features and functionality to QBO. They actually have more programmers and engineers working on QBO now than on the desktop products. So they're really starting to emphasize it. So what I'm going to do now is I am actually in the sample company file. You see this little blue thing over here, sample company, and I gave you the URL for that in the PowerPoint slide, the test drive, as well as I put it in the chat room. So you can log into Craig's Design, and you can play with all this just like I'm showing you here, because this is the sample company file. So right now we are going to be in the Plus edition. So we've got all the bells and whistles of QBO. If you go with Essentials or Simple Start, you're not going to have all the same features that I'm showing you in here because I've got the Plus edition in the sample file. So let's say we go into the company, and I'm assuming that you're already somewhat familiar with QuickBooks Desktop. So I'm going to be pointing out how things are similar and how things are different. We're not going into details of how to enter transactions and things like that. So just to start with, under the company, under the chart of accounts, it's very similar to the desktop. You've got your different types of accounts. You can add, you can edit, you can import. Down here in the bottom right, you can see import. You got new accounts. You can edit your accounts, things like that. Just like in the desktop version, if I double-click on an account, let's say I double-click on my checking account, it will bring up the register for that account. So it shows you all the activity for that account. I could tab across down here and enter transactions for that. So in that respect, it's very similar. Also, under the company menu, we have recurring transactions instead of memorized transactions. In the desktop, we memorize them. QBO, they call it recurring transactions. You can set up sales taxes in QBO. Your preferences, on the desktop, you go to Edit Preferences. In QuickBooks Online, you go to Company Preferences. And there's a lot of preferences out here that you can set for your clients. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is go into the sample company file and scroll through all these different preferences that are out here. Just like in the desktop, they've got them categorized over here. You've got company preferences. Remember I said you have class and location tracking. So you can track it by two different designations or two different categories, class tracking and location tracking. In the desktop version, they call it an items list. QuickBooks Online, it's products and services list. You can set up two-sided items just like you do for the desktop, for job costing or whatever. You can have two-sided items for your products and services as well. Your sales forms, you can go in and customize those. Yes, you can customize your invoices and how you want it to look and how you want them to print out. You could go through and do all that. You can set up for reimbursable charges and reimbursable expenses, those delayed charges that we mentioned. If you want to enter the charges like throughout the period and then invoice for them at the end of the period, you can do that. You can turn on estimates. You can set up discounts. So there's a lot of different things that you can do out here. You can email your forms. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And then there's all these other preferences that you can set under your time tracking. You can, in fact, go through and you can bill your customers for your time. So you can do some job costing in the QBO. It's not as robust as the desktop version, and there's not as many reports, but you can do billable time and billable expenses with QBO. Then let's go ahead and look at our customers a little bit. I'm just going to take a peek here and see if we have some questions. And let me go up to the top. It doesn't look like that many. Is it true that a client can use QBO with a Mac and I can access their info with a Windows PC? Yes, you can do that. That's one of the nice things is you guys are logging in from a browser. So if your client logs in from a Mac and you're logging in from PC, you're both using QBO and you're sharing that data file so you don't have those compatibility issues like you do when the client's using Mac and you're using PC. So you don't have to worry about that going back and forth. So that is very nice. Then there's another question here. Since QBO doesn't have local backup capabilities, what happens to client data once they decide to leave Intuit for other companies? You can export or download it for the Windows version of QuickBooks if you want to or if you need to. It's not seamless, and if you were trying to convert from QBO to the desktop, you might have a few issues. For example, you don't have location tracking on the desktop version like you do in the online version. But you can, in fact, export that and download that so you have that available for you. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go on to a couple of other things. So in here in the Customer Center, just like in the desktop version, you have your customer list over here. You can create these sub-customers. It's called a sub-customer instead of a job. So you can have sub-customers or kind of jobs, if you will, in your customer list. When you click on a customer name over here, it would show you the detail for that customer. You can edit the customer and put in there their information. So you could show more details about their billing address, their payment method, and all that. But just like in the desktop version, you've got a lot of the same fields and same functionality. You know, the company name, display it as, here's your address information, any notes that you might have on that customer, the tax information if they are tax exempt or if they are taxable, any payment or billing information, what terms do you want to have for them. So a lot of this is very similar. This is where you would set up if it's a sub-customer or a job, if you will. So if you wanted to set up a sub-customer and then bill with parent, that's going to allow you to do some of that job costing information that you might want to do. So from the Customer Center, you could go ahead and create an invoice. Let me just pull an invoice up here and show you that it looks very similar to the desktop. Again, you choose which customer it is. It's going to pull that information. In here, you have your product or service instead of an item. You have the product or service. Here's how you can have the service date that's different from your invoice date. And I know a lot of people have asked for that, particular, you know, like say lawyers that track their time all throughout the month and then want to invoice at the end of the month or something. You can, again, have customer messages. You can put a memo. How do you want to get that to it? Do you want to print it or send it? So it's very similar to the desktop version. Down here, you can save it, send it. If you want to email, copy it. If you want to duplicate it, preview, or make it recurring instead of memorize. So again, it's very similar to the desktop version, just a little bit of a different look and feel. So that's kind of cool there. Now, one of the things that I had mentioned to you is that you can have multiple windows open. So let's say I've got this in this window here. You'll notice I've got several tabs up here. I've got my Preferences tab, and there's a Settings. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Let's say I've got my invoice here. If I right-click, I can duplicate this. Now, I'm using Google Chrome. Google Chrome is the recommended browser for QuickBooks Online, but you also can have additional tabs in IE or Internet Explorer and Firefox. So now I've got, here's the original invoice, here's my duplicate. I can navigate over to, let's say I want to go to banking and credit card expense or something. I can now have my invoice open here. I've got credit card charges here. I've got my preferences here. I can have these multiple windows open. One of the nice things, too, is if I click on this tab, I can drag and drop and actually move that over to a second monitor if I wanted to. In QuickBooks Desktop, if you want it on the second monitor, like say I wanted to take my invoices window and pull it over to a second monitor, I actually would have to stretch QuickBooks across the two monitors. Because I couldn't just take it and drag it over there. But you could stretch your QuickBooks across two monitors. But it's a lot easier to do that in QuickBooks Online. You can just drag and drop and have multiple windows open as multiple browser windows. So yes, you can have multiple windows open, and you can go right between them. You just duplicate, open another browser, and let's say over here I want to go to my vendors list. So I don't have to close my invoice over here. So I can have multiple windows open as multiple browser tabs. I also could be in multiple QBO files or companies by having multiple users in Google Chrome. For example, see how I have this little smiley face user? I also have another user here as Michelle, the little puppy dog. Let me go over here. I'm going to bring this one up in a minute. Whoops, didn't mean to do that one. I meant to do this one. Oops, here's my puppy dog. I'll get it right eventually. See the puppy dog user? That's a different user. I can have multiple users in Google Chrome. So I can have multiple QuickBooks companies open. This company is my VCon demo, but if I go down here to my other user in Google Chrome, this is my Craig's. Now, you cannot change the colors like you do with your desktop version. In QuickBooks Pro or Premier in the desktop, you can change the color so that it's easy to tell which company file you're in. In QBO, when you're doing that, you'd have to pay attention to your little icon up here in the corner to tell which file you're in. So be careful if you have multiple companies open at the same time. It's easy to get in the wrong file. So that's something that can kind of mess you up a little bit. So in the vendors, you can see we have the vendor list. Vendors are people you're paying money. We have enter bills and pay bills, just like in the desktop version of QuickBooks. You've got your employee center. If you want to go out there and try payroll, you can go out there and play with it to test out the payroll information. You can enter a single time. You got weekly timesheets. Again, very similar to the desktop version. One of the things that I think is really cool is, let's go back over here to our customers. We can actually customize this menu bar going across here by clicking on More and Rearrange Menu. I could come in here and let's say I don't do estimates very often, so I want to pull that down here. Maybe I do a lot of refunds or credits, so I want to pull that one up there. I can actually go through and rearrange how I want that menu to appear. And if I tell it I don't do estimates, then it's not going to show up on here. So you can rearrange, and that's true on any of your menus. You click on More, and you can rearrange the menu. On Company, come down over here, and you can rearrange. So you could go in and customize that menu for however you want. You also can do budgets, just like in the desktop version. Under Company, you have budgets. Get over here. You have budgets. Also, you're going to want to click on Manage Users. This is where if you've got your clients that are using QBO, you want to go under Manage Users and have them invite you, right here, invite the accountant. And there now is the ability to have 2 accountant users. So that's really cool. Maybe you have the tax accountant and you have the bookkeeper who's doing the books throughout the year. So you can invite the accountant user from right here under Company and Manage Users. So that's where you can go through and do that. So let me take a look and see what kind of questions we have. With a cloud program like this, we can have clients anywhere around the world. That's right. However, people from around the world can offer the same services that we do. How then can we differentiate ourselves to justify? That's a really good question because, yes, you're right. You can have clients all over the world now, and you can log into different versions of QuickBooks. I've been working with a client from Australia now. There's QBO in Canada, in Singapore, in the UK. So you're right. It is now a global economy. So the best thing that we can do is collaborate, communicate with our client, provide good services. And a lot of times people appreciate that, being able to talk to you and communicate with you. And that's where using QBO, you're using the same data file, so it makes it a lot easier to stay in contact and stay in touch with your clients. And I think that really helps us to collaborate with them better instead of waiting until the end of the year or waiting until they've made a mess and we got to clean it up. It's easy for us to log in now and work with the client on the same data file because it's in the cloud. Okay, so that was a few things. Let me also show you, like under your Customer Center, it's called the Income List or the Money Bar. And this is really great, and a lot of small businesses really like this because it's like their dashboard. And I'm in the sample company file, so it's turned on all these little tips and tricks for me here. You can just click the X to close those. But it's called an income list, or some of us call it a money bar, because it shows your money from your estimates that you might have to unbilled time and costs that you might have entered. Here's open invoices, overdue invoices, and then over here, invoices within the last 30 days. So let's say if I were to go in and look at the estimates that I have, I can click on that, and it just then will filter to show me just those 2 estimates. I can come over here and say, okay, I'm ready now to create this into an invoice, so I can copy it to an invoice if that's what I want to do. And then here's ready to do that. I can make any changes if I wanted to. Now, I'm going to click the back button, but I don't have to go up here and click on the back arrow because my mouse has a backwards and forwards key on it. If you don't have a mouse with the little backwards and forwards button on the side of it, I encourage you to get it. They're not that expensive, and they're great. Saves you a lot of time. But anyway, so you can do things directly from here, from the individual transactions. You also, let's say I want to look at all these overdue invoices, you can do batch transactions. So if I clicked on all these where it says batch actions, I could print them all at once, or I could send it. So I could send a reminder email to all of these overdue invoices at one time. I think that's pretty cool, being able to do some of that batch activity. So this is kind of like a dashboard for all of your income, all your money coming in and things like that. So this is kind of a cool place for your clients to work from, is the income or the money bar. So now let me go ahead and show you too under the banking menu, under downloaded transactions, because you can set up your bank account so that it automatically will pull these transactions in every night for you for your bank or your credit cards. And then you could go through in here and kind of go ahead and accept these and get these posted into QuickBooks. So for example, I like to sort things by transaction, or I'm sorry, by description, to get all those transactions together for one particular entity. So let's say, for example, if I scroll down here, you'll see Federal Express, and it's got uncategorized expense. Well, let's say I wanted to go ahead and assign that to something. Let me just go ahead and assign it to, let me just pick something quick and easy here. Let's put it to office expenses. Now, watch this next one here on May 13th. Once I do it on the first one and I accept that, then it assigns that for the next one and subsequent ones. It will remember what you did the last time. So that's kind of cool. It'll remember that. Or you've got, like down here, you could select several of them to accept them all at one time if you wanted to. So you can go through and click to accept multiple ones if you want to. If that transaction has already been entered into QBO, then you might want to click, instead of assign, you might want to click that match button so you can go in and find matching transactions that you've already entered. Maybe you've already entered that check into QuickBooks because you had to print it out and mail it out or something like that. Or you've already entered that payment that you received. It came through as a sales receipt when you entered it or something. You need to decide, is this something to assign or do you want to match it? But you can get these transactions downloaded all the time. And then as the accountant, you can review accepted transactions to go in and look and see what the client accepted to see if they're okay or not, or do you need to undo some of them. And let's say, oh my gosh, the client just went through and accepted a whole bunch of these, but they didn't do it right. I can unaccept these transactions. I can undo and move them back over to reclassify them as you need to. So that's just something that sometimes you might need to do that. Now, I've been in the QuickBooks Online file as if I were the client. This is what the client's saying. Now, us as accounting professionals, we have some really cool tools. So like I was just talking about, what if they classified them wrong? There's a cool tool for us as accounting professionals in QuickBooks Online Edition, or Online Accountants. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here. Whoops, and it signed me out because I was inactive for too long. Let me look at a couple of questions here. Somebody says, where can we ask you questions? I don't see them coming on the screen. You're right. You're not going to see them coming on the screen because unless I type an answer in and send it to everybody, you don't see those questions. You can type them in, and I can see the questions, and I'm reading them out loud as we go along. Somebody else says, do Pro Advisors get payroll for free for QBO? Intuit had an offering for a little while. I'm not sure if it's still available, where you could get 1 year free with Intuit Online Payroll. If you are a Pro Advisor, I would suggest you log into the Pro Advisor website and go look under software and discounts and see if that is still out there or not. Can the client and accountants work in QBO simultaneously? Yes, that's the beauty of QBO, is you both can log in, you both can be working, so the client can be entering invoices while you're reconciling the bank account. So yes, you both can work in the file at the same time, so that's kind of nice. But what if they don't always go to the same expense? Then you can tell it to auto recall the last one, or you can turn that off if you don't want it to auto recall. So you're in control of how you want to do that. How well does this integrate with Bill.com? Bill.com is an app that integrates with QBO, so it integrates very well. Actually, if you go and click on App Center, you will see a lot of apps there that integrate, and Bill.com is one of them. So let's talk about QBOA, QuickBooks Online Accountant. This is what we want to use as accounting professionals to support our clients. So if you go to QBOA.intuit.com, sign up for QBOA, and then you log in, you're going to get a free QBO subscription right here. So this is your company. You can do with it what you want. If you want to use that for your own business and your own accounting records, then that's fine. If you want to use that as a sample file, upload a QuickBooks file to it to play around with it, you can do that as well. Maybe you want a demo company and you want to play with it or something, you can do that. If you have multiple clients, then they're going to be showing up in here. So you can see I've set up a couple of them here to kind of demonstrate this to you, to show you. But this would be your client. So let's say you had 10 of these through here. You would have like 10 different clients that you can log into. You want to log into their file through QBOA so you get these special Accountant Center and the accountant tools that they have available for us. Because now you'll see before under Reports and then App Center, we didn't have an Accountant tab. And just plain old QBO, there's no Accountant tab. You got to log in through QBOA to get access to that accountant tab. If you're a pro advisor, QBOA is free. If you get one QuickBooks Online accountant and have them invite you, QBO is free for you as well. So go ahead and sign up for QBO. You can go ahead and sign up and start using it as a trial version, and then hopefully you get a client and have them invite you, and you can use some of these tools on your clients. One of the cool tools in the Accountant Center here is the reclassified transactions. Just like you have in the CDR or Client Data Review in QuickBooks for Desktop, which I did in a webinar on that earlier this morning. If you missed that webinar, I'm going to post it to YouTube so you can watch it later. But the reclassified transaction tool allows you to come in here, and let's say I want to go in here and review some of these things and see, did the client enter it correctly? Are there any problems? So let's say I just come in here, I'm going to look at equipment rental. And, oh, this one maybe shouldn't have gone in here. Or let's say these three shouldn't have gone in here. You identify that the client has posted something wrong. Then you can come down, and over here you can change that account to what do you want to assign it to. And you can come in here and say, oh, well, that should have gone to, let's put it to cost of goods sold, whatever it needs to be. Or you could assign a class. If it was unclassified before and now you need to assign it to a class, you can go through, do that. You click on reclassify, and now it will take those three and move them and reclassify them for you all at once. So this is a tool that's really going to save you a lot of money. And so now if I go click up here on cost of goods sold, you'll see here's those that I moved up here, and they assigned that class of new construction. So the reclassified transaction tool is going to save you a lot of time when you're trying to clean up messes that your clients have made. So that's one of the tools that we have available in the Accountant Center for us. The tools that have a green star are only available in QuickBooks Online Accountants. Okay, so the reclassified transactions, adjusting journal entry as opposed to regular journal entries. That keeps our journal entries separate. So when you do the adjusted trial balance, you'll see your adjustments in the adjustments column as opposed to the client's journal entries. Oh, but talking about journal entries, let me show you what you can do. And this is available in QBO, not just QBOA. Watch what I can do here on my journal entries. Accounts, whoops, if I could spell right, accounts receivable, let's do $500. And I'm going to do Christy Abercrombie. And now let's do accounts payable, and let's do Perry Window and Doors. What did I just do that you can't do in the desktop version? What did I just do that you can't do in the desktop version? Type that in there if you know it. Somebody asked what kind of security is in place. Has QBO been hacked yet? They have lots of security when it comes to QBO. If you just Google QBO security, QuickBooks Online security, there's blog posts and there's some details on that out there. Yes, I entered more than one AP or more than one accounts receivable or accounts payable in the same journal entry. Yes, that is something that you could do in the QuickBooks Online edition. You can't do that in the desktop. You can have more than one AR or AP in the same journal entry. Excuse me. So that's something you can do in QBO that you cannot do in, and I'm missing some classes, that's okay. But you can do that in QBO. You can't do that in the desktop version. So that's kind of cool. You also then, you've got your couple of reports here, your budget and profit and loss and your P&L comparison, your balance sheet comparison. You also over here have a cool tool if you want to write off invoices. Okay, if you've got a lot of invoices out there that your client has that are old, they're small amounts, whatever, you can say I want to take a look at all invoices that are over 180 days old and maybe invoices that are less than, you know, $5,000 or $500 or whatever it is. You could go through here and you could say, okay, I want to write all these off except, whoops, that guy said he's going to pay me and I still think I might collect that one. So you could go through here, choose which account you want it to go to. You can set up whichever account you want it to go to write those off. You can preview, and then you could write all those off in batch. So we've got a couple of tools that are helpful for us. The other thing that we have as accounting professionals is the ability to undo the bank rec. Now, in QuickBooks Online, the regular version, not QBOA, but in just plain QBO that your clients are using, they can't undo the bank reconciliation. They have to go through and do that manually. But when you log in under QuickBooks Online Accountant, you have the ability to undo the last bank reconciliation. You go under the Reconcile window, choose the account, and now notice when I click on this line for that reconciliation, I have undo over here on the far right of that. So I can undo the last reconciliation. So you can undo bank recs by doing that. Also, I wanted to show you is, Intuit is constantly updating QBO. So now the reconciliation screen is kind of side-by-side mode, just like in the desktop. We got our checks and payments over here. I can sort by date if I want to. I can kind of change how I want these things sorted. Click by type to sort them by type, maybe if I wanted to sort them by amount. But some people prefer the old reconciliation window. So up here where it says Old Reconcile, they could go back to the old method where it was more top to bottom. You kind of scroll down to see all that stuff. So it's, again, it's very similar to the desktop version of QuickBooks. It's just some things are a little bit different. So I encourage you to get out there and check it out. And somebody says, yes, now I like it better. Good, 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 good. Let's see, did it show that a comparative balance sheet is not available for clients, only the accountants? It's ready-made in the accountant edition. You would have to modify it some for the clients in the QBO version, which that brings up another good point. Let me go ahead and go into the reports, because you can customize those reports just like you do in the desktop version. So let's say I come in here and I want to do a profit and loss report. I take a look at it and I say, gosh, I really want it to be monthly. So just like in the desktop version, you can customize that report. You can change from cash to accrual, collapse, or expand if you want to get rid of the sub-accounts. If I want to see a monthly, I can go ahead and add the months there. If I wanted to make comparative, I can add the comparative periods, previous year, previous period, percent, all that stuff, just like you can do. You can email it. You can export it to Excel. You can do all the same things to that report, or most of them. I won't say all, but you can do a lot of the same things just by going through and customizing just like you do in the desktop. Here's something that you can't do in the desktop, and I think it's really cool. Okay, so if I come along, I can memorize it, and I can create groups. Well, you say, well, that's no big deal. I can create memorized reports and groups of reports in the desktop version. Yes, you can, but can you actually schedule them to be emailed to the client in the desktop version? And you can do this in QBO, not just QBOA. But here, for example, we have monthly reports. If I edit that group, down in the lower right corner, if you click on Edit, you've got your group name, Set an Email Schedule. I can edit the schedule and email these reports every day, every week, every month, what period you want it to be, and do you want it to end after 10 occurrences. This is great for you to email reports to your business owners. Maybe you've got a nonprofit organization. You want to send them reports every month. You can schedule it to automatically email these reports to your client, and it's just going to happen. You don't have to remember to log in, generate the reports, save them to PDF, attach it to an email, send it to the clients. This is going to automate that for you. I think that's really cool. And again, that's in QBO, not just in QuickBooks Online Accountant Edition. So I think that's pretty cool. Let me look at a few questions that you might have. So let me just take a look over here and see what we have. Does the accountant version allow you to undo the reconciliation? Yes, that's what I was talking about, is that you can undo the bank rec in QBOA. If you actually need to remotely log on to the client screen to see them in action to help them, is there a third-party app? If you just want to log in remotely to your clients, join join.me. join.me is a free tool that's part of LogMeIn. It's the quickest, easiest, and it works for those clients that are technologically challenged. It is the absolute easiest to use with your clients for remote access for quick things like that, where you want to see what they're doing or try to help them with some training. Let's see, what else we got? Can you show again how you open multiple windows? Yes, Diana. Let's say you're not using QuickBooks Accountant, or you're not using Chrome. In the Accountants menu, right here it says New Window. That will open a new duplicate window for you. So see how it's automatically opening that window up here? So here's my Accountant Center, and it just did that automatically. So if you're using Firefox or IE and you can't right-click Duplicate, then come into the Accountant tab and click on New Window. But in Google Chrome, I can right-click and duplicate that tab. So now I have my Accountant Center here. On this part of the Accountant Center, I could go in, and let's say I want to go in and look at the activity log. I can have the activity log in one window, and I still have my Accountant Center over here. That way you're not going back and forth and just having one window open. You can have multiple windows open on multiple tabs. You also, up here, if you're using Google Chrome, can have additional users so that you can log in as a different user to different QBO files. Be careful with that because it's hard to differentiate and it's easy to start doing things in the wrong file. Somebody said, please repeat the remote access. Join, JOIN .me, M-E. Go to your browser and type in join.me, and that will take you to Join Me, and then the client just clicks on the little free share button here on the right side, or I'm sorry, on the left, Start Meeting. They click on this. You put in the code number that they're going to give you. It's really easy to do. So try it out with yourself on 2 different windows or 2 different computers if you've got that going. Okay, so the other thing that I was going to show you was that activity log, because there's an audit trail in the desktop version, but we've got the activity log in the QBO version that shows even more information. Now, this is an old Rockcastle file that I uploaded, so I'm just going to type a T for today, and it automatically put that date in there for me of May 30th. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK, and then this will bring up all the stuff that I've done. So here you'll see it shows that I've added a journal entry, I edited a bill, I emailed some invoices. It'll show you when I signed in. It would show when users log in and log off. It also shows you what they changed. So here we've changed some preferences. I added a product or service. If we edited and changed a check or something like that, it actually would show you in red what changed. So here's that check. I actually meant to click on the history. Over to the right side, click over here on the history, and it will show you, oh, email doesn't show me a change. I wanted to see one that was edited. Let's click on this for edited. Edited a bill, and now I can click on the details for that. It'll show in red what changed. Remember, I reclassified transactions, so I changed in the class, and I changed the account. So in red, it's showing you what they changed, who changed it, and what time they changed it. No more of this, I didn't do that. Oh, really? You've got this awesome audit trail, and I think it's so much better than the audit trail on the desktop version. So that's one of the things that I really like is the audit trail or the activity log, whichever one you want to call it, in the QBO version. I think that's pretty cool. Let me look at a couple of questions here. If my client invites me as an accountant, I can use QBOA for free. Yes, that's right. So if your client already has a subscription to QBO, QuickBooks Online, they go under Company, Manage Users. So your client logs in, or you log in to help them to do this. Go under Company, Manage Users, Invite Accountant. And when you invite yourself, you want to use the same email address right here that you use when you log in. Let me close that. When you're logging in or signing up for QBOA, you want to use the same ID number, the same email address. Otherwise, because that's how it links and it shows you your client files here is based on that email address. So you want to use the same email address. Once you've signed up for QBOA, let's say you get a new client and they say, hey, Michelle, I want to start using QuickBooks Online. And you say, okay, I'll set you up. Right up here, new company, new QBO company. You can come in, give it a name. Which version do they need? Plus, Essentials, which one do you want to sign them up for? You can create that company file. There's like 3 clicks in 3 minutes or something like that. You can import their QuickBooks Desktop. So you can import the QuickBooks file in here. Takes a little bit of time, and bam, you're ready to go. And then you can turn that over to the client and keep yourself as the accountant user, but have the client be the primary user on that account. So it's kind of up to you if you want to set this up from here. I think it's really easy to do it right from here, and then you could kind of turn it over to your client. The other thing that's really cool is, let's say you're an accountant who also does tax returns. One of the new things now is the seamless integration with ITO or Intuit Tax Online. I could come in here under tax return. You see you have new tax returns down here, the tax line assignments, tax adjustments, and you can generate the tax return directly from here. So it's integrated workflow for you. It'll go through and ask you which type and all that stuff. Now, I'm not actually going to do this because I don't have it up. But you could go through there and do integration with ITO or Intuit Tax Online, which, by the way, if you're a pro advisor, you get 5 free individual returns with ITO or Intuit Tax Online. So I think that's something that's really cool as well. Let me see if we go ahead now and look at some of these. If you set it up through QBOA, how do you offer your client the Pro Advisor discount? Yes, you still have to call into it to give them that Pro Advisor discount. But that's a great way to save your client some money is with that discount. Hopefully they'll streamline that a little bit. Is there any way to lock the titles so they're still in view as you scroll down in long reports? Diana, I don't think there is right now, but that would be a good thing to suggest to them, which go ahead and send your feedback to Intuit. They are definitely looking for feedback and suggestions on what we want. Let's see. We've got a couple other hands. As in the hosted versions, can you train in QBO so that the client and accountant see each other's entries? I'm not sure about what you mean train in QBO. When you're in QBO, you and the client both can enter transactions. You're sharing the data file. I can log in and be reconciling the bank account, and a client can log in and be entering their invoices at the same time. And when I go look at customers, and I'm going to be able to see invoices that they've entered in here. Like if I were to go under invoices and recent, I would see what they've entered because it's the same file. We're sharing the same database in the cloud, if you will. So that's one of the things that's really cool is that you're seeing both of that. Okay, so up here under help and then under feedback. So help is where you can go and you can type in things if you have questions, you're wanting to get some additional help. If you want to let them know what you want, like locking the titles on those reports, click on feedback. You've got feedback like on every screen. In the upper right corner over here, the yellow, go ahead and put that feedback in there and let Intuit know what you want. They have lots of programmers working on QBO, QuickBooks Online Accountant, trying to make it better, and they're just devoting a lot of resources to it. So let them know what you'd like to see out there. Let's see. Somebody said about apps. Okay, under the App Center, there are a lot of apps that will integrate with QBO. Depending on what your client's needs are, you can come out here, and I'm going to click on See More Apps, whether they need CRM for customer management, whether they need inventory, time tracking, timesheets, Bill.com, SOS inventory if they have additional inventory needs. There's a lot of different apps that are out there that will integrate with QBO, so I'd encourage you to come out here and take a look to see what's available. QBO is available on a mobile device. There's two different things out there. You have an iPad app. Let me go ahead and search. You have an iPad app. I'm not seeing it right now, but you have an iPad app for QuickBooks Online. If you've already got a subscription, you're going to be able to use that iPad app, but you can only do things like enter estimates, enter invoices. You can enter some expenses, like let's say they went and bought something at the hardware store, you could enter that. You can't just log in and reconcile from your bank account on an iPad or a tablet. You can't log in and see all of those reports. It's not fully functional from an iPad or a tablet or things like that. So keep that in mind. If that's a big requirement of them, then you might want to go with QuickBooks Desktop hosted instead of QuickBooks Online. Now, they are putting more and more resources into the iPad app, so 6 months from now, that can be totally different. But for right now, that's kind of the way that it is. So let's see the other questions that we have here. So somebody said they put so many things in feedback and they don't answer. You're right. They typically don't respond to you. Like they don't respond to all the feedback that they get, but they do have something that tracks that. And the more requests that they get for a certain feature, the higher up the chain it gets bumped to, priority. When they're looking at setting priorities, the more people that request a feature, the higher up in the priority it will get. But no, when you put something in the feedback, I wouldn't expect Intuit to actually, reply to you. But they do take that and they get reports on that, and that's how they help prioritize the new development and what they're adding into that. So let's see some other questions that we have. The scan check option is missing. What option is available for receiving checks? You can set up to receive payments online. If you go under that App Center, you can sign up to receive credit cards. It doesn't have the same e-check that you're thinking of in the desktop version, but you can do some of that by coming on through the App Center or signing up for the accept credit cards online. And some of that would be under your company preferences. You can go down and you'll see where it says accept credit cards, accept online payments right here. You can go in there and look and see at setting that up and using like the Intuit Payment Network to receive checks that way. So that might be a good substitute for you as well. Okay, so let's see. We're getting into our final minutes here. I'm going to go ahead and keep answering some questions and showing you things, but I want to go ahead and do another poll for you just to see what are your thoughts about QBO now. Compared to when you first joined us today, what are your thoughts on this now? Let me see what you think about it now. Let's see what you think about it now. Let me go ahead and go back to that poll, and you guys are answering it. Somebody else said they like IPN too. Yes, Intuit Payment Network, and you'll see right here where it says Intuit Payment Network. I love, 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 love it, because if they pay you by entering their bank account information, it's only 50 cents per transaction. So I think that's really cool. I like Intuit Payment Network. You can use it to accept credit cards as well, but I really like it when they pay with an e-check. So let's go ahead and answer this. Bruce says it's still not my best friend. Bruce, you're a hard nut to crack. All right, let me go ahead and close that poll and share the results with you, because we had 39% said, oh my God, it is better than I thought. So very good. 12% are going to go ahead and sign up for QBOA today. 48% say they're going to check it out more. I hope you will, because this has just been a very quick overview of some of the similarities and differences and some of the highlights of it. So I really do hope you will go out to that test drive company and test it out and play with it, things like that. 5% still aren't impressed. Okay, so what's your drawback? What is it you're not really excited about? Let me know, and I'll see if I convert you. Okay, so this has hopefully been a quick overview. Somebody asked about training. If you're a pro advisor, Intuit now has a certification program. You can become a certified QuickBooks Online pro advisor. You can get certified in QBO. There's training courses out there for pro advisors. There's also some training that you can share with your clients if you're a pro advisor member. So there is some training out there. My son and I are going to be working on a QBO practice set. Hopefully that'll be out a little bit later this summer. And there are some other resources out there. If you just Google it and look for some, you can find some of those. Pauline says, thank you. Yes, it was brief and fast and helpful. Yeah, this is a very brief intro. There's a lot. There's no way you can possibly cover it all in an hour. So this is definitely an intro. Can you do billable expenses? Yes, you can. QBO can do billable expenses, and I think you have to have the Plus version in order to do that. Inventory, yes, QBO does FIFO-based inventory. So there is inventory capabilities with QuickBooks Online. Let's see what else. Can't wait to check out some things. Thank you. Somebody sent their own company file to QBO. Great way to learn. Yes, it is. I really encourage you to do that. Go ahead and send your own company file, upload it, and start playing with it. And that can give you some more practice, and that way you feel more comfortable using it. Because really, QBO is very similar to the desktop version. So if you already know how to use the desktop, you're going to be comfortable with QBO in a matter of hours. I mean, it doesn't really take that long to learn to navigate and maneuver and move around in it. Go in there and look at the preferences to see what are some of the additional preferences that you can turn on. And if you think, well, gosh, it doesn't do this, go look at the preferences. You might just need to turn that preference on. And remember, there's differences between the Simple Start, Essentials, and the Plus version as well. Okay, so we had a lot of great questions there. We had a lot of great attendees today, but it does look like we are running out of time, and I'd like to stick with your time there, so I really appreciate it. Let's see, somebody else said I need to buy your book. Good, thank you. That would be great. Is Bill.com the only workaround for online payments? I'm not sure if you're talking about receiving payments or making payments, but Bill.com is definitely great for making payments if that's what you're asking about, and managing accounts payable. But Bill.com does the receivables as well, too. So Bill.com is a great add-on if you haven't checked that out yet. Okay, you guys are still viewing my poll results. I'm going to go ahead and close that there. I'm going to go to my last little PowerPoint slide here. Go ahead and give you my email address if you need to follow up with me. Again, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my blog at longforsuccess.com/blog. That way you'll see when I have additional free webinars that are coming up. You'll see when that QBO practice set is available, as well as other things. And also check out my LinkedIn group. That's a great resource when you have additional questions. With almost 30,000 members now, surely there's somebody who can help to answer your questions. But thank you all for joining me today for this webinar. I really appreciate it. I hope you'll sign up for QBOA today and start playing with it and checking it out. And thank you for listening.